What's up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about New Mutants number 27 by Vita Ayala, Rod Race, and Jan Duursema. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly why time travel is going to help MAGIK get her soul sword back. And just as important, why MAGIK and Colossus's reunion is not as happy as a lot of people probably assumed it would be.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie, and make it look easy.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. When last we left off, MAGIK, as well as the rest of her fellow New Mutants, namely Wolfsbane, Mirage, and of course the new leader of Limbo herself, Madelyne Pryor, formerly known as the Goblin Queen. They had just recently run afoul of some phalanx-infused demons, and with the help of future Illyana, they were able to thwart this entire threat. Now it was suddenly time to try to get back home, but something crazy happened. The younger version of Illyana that we have been seeing in the flashbacks, she had somehow managed to bring the Illyana of the present into the imagination world that she had created within Limbo itself, basically a way for her to escape from Belasco. She needed the help of real heroes to get her out of this mess, and considering the fact that everything else had gone wrong with the previous iterations of heroes that she had dragged into her world, namely twisted iterations of characters like Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Shadowcat, as well as her own brother Colossus, she knew she needed something better. The spell that she cast was to bring her the hero that she needed, not necessarily the one that she wanted, and the hero that she got was herself, albeit a future version of herself. But we gotta remember, time travel is involved here, because this isn't some alternate reality. This is MAGIK literally traveling to the past, her time when she was a prisoner of Belasco in Limbo, and this leads to a lot of back and forth as to whether or not Illyana of the present day should do anything to change the events of the past, because she knows that she has to go through this harrowing ordeal being imprisoned by the demon Belasco in order for everything to play out the way that it's supposed to. If she changes anything, she knows it could change everything. It could undo a lot of things. It could make it to where Krakoa never happens. It could make it to where Krakoa happens way later. It could even potentially make it happen earlier, or make something even better, or something incredibly worse. There's lots of factors that can come into play here, and she knows whatever she does, there's the potential for her to mess things up, especially if she tries to take that younger version of Illyana out of the past and take her back to where she came from. She wants nothing more than to take her back to that moment in 1983's MAGIK Storm and Illyana #1, where Belasco tried to snatch her away and put her right back as if nothing ever happened. But she knows deep down that's not what she wants to do, even at a later point in this book, wrestling with the idea of doing it, where at first she knew she couldn't do it, but the more time she spent around the younger version of herself, she realized she really did deep down want to do it, but she does eventually realize this is not what she should be doing. In the end though, her time spent around this younger version of Illyana, the Illyana of the past, it's through the failures that Illyana persistently went through trying to create the soul sword, trying to create an acorn as a semblance of life within Limbo. That was kind of the precursor to her finally crafting the soul sword in MAGIK Storm and Illyana #4. She gifts that to Illyana for helping her gain the courage and hope that she needs to eventually take down Belasco. This is important because as of the recent New Mutants number 25, the Demon Sim had destroyed the soul sword that MAGIK normally carries around. Now, yes, she has gotten another soul sword as of late, one that she picked up in the previous issue of New Mutants number 26, thanks to her encounter with an older version of herself, and we see her craft a new soul sword facing off against a imaginary version of Belasco inside of Illyana's imagination. Albeit this is also not the true soul sword. She hasn't crafted a new one yet. That story is still yet to be told. But what we do see in this is that taking what was essentially a failed attempt by the younger Illyana to create an acorn in Limbo, she has what I think is going to be the galvanizing component to help her craft the new soul sword, to remember the trials and tribulations that she went through throughout that 4-issue miniseries that helped her craft the weapon that has become synonymous with her and turned her into a more powerful character than I think anyone could have ever imagined her becoming. She doesn't have it yet, and while she does feel like taking this from the younger version of Illyana is going to handicap her in her attempts to get away from Belasco, the younger Illyana realizes that this has to happen. Her older self needs this right now. She lacks the power and the ability to do what needs doing, and the only way she's gonna get it is with the younger version of her's help. And this is it. I think within the next issue or two, we're probably gonna see Illyana finally craft the Soul Sword, and I think this, I guess a symbol of hope on the part of a younger Illyana, is gonna be instrumental in helping her get there. Another thing that's of note here is, why is Colossus, after all this time of not really being around his sister Illyana, why are things so tense between them? It seems like there's some kind of bad blood between them if you're not familiar with events prior to House of X. Now, granted, there's a little bit of time spread out between a lot of this. They haven't really spent a whole heap of a lot of time around one another. Over the last decade, it seems like they probably would have, you would think, but that's actually not the case. They've actually spent quite a bit of time apart, and one of the reasons I think is key to this and helping people understand why there's a little bit of tension between them is that they had a little bit of a rough patch. If you go back to 2012's Uncanny X-Men Volume 2, number 18 and 20. It's in those issues where Illyana reveals that she intentionally meant for Colossus to become enthralled by the Crimson God Sidorak, the very same god that is responsible for empowering Cain Marko, aka the Juggernaut. This was a really harsh time for Colossus because he became pretty much obsessed with destruction and bloodlust, and it was very difficult for him to control, and he became this entirely different character from what I think people actually recognized him for back then. Now, to get to that part, you have to go back just a little bit further, but only as far back as 2011's Uncanny X-Men number 543. That's the issue where the actual transference of power happens, where Sidorak is about to give Illyana the power, but Colossus, of course, loving his sister the way that he does and not wanting her to be damned yet again, especially after everything she experienced, being trapped in limbo for so long, he doesn't want that for her again, and he puts himself between Sidorak and Illyana, and he takes up the power of the Juggernaut. And of course, getting back to the Uncanny X-Men Volume 2, issues 18 and 20 that I just mentioned earlier, it's in these issues after all the turmoil that Colossus had been through wielding the power of Sidorak and how it damaged his mental health and turned him into a wreck. It was here that Illyana revealed that, for one, she intentionally meant for this to happen, and that for two, she could have taken it away from him anytime that she wanted. She could have removed the curse of Sidorak from him and never made him go through the shame and damnation that he had suffered. But it was all because she wanted him to understand why it was impossible for him to truly care about her, because he didn't really understand where she came from, that she spent so much time in limbo that it twisted her and she became a different person than the Illyana that he knew beforehand, the snowflake that he was so fond of before she was ripped away from him by the demon Belasco had become something else. She knew that he could never truly appreciate and love her because he didn't understand her, and now that he has been damned himself, that he has gone through the torture and pain similar to something that maybe she would have suffered through, only, not in limbo, now she feels that he can better understand what it is that she goes through, and he can appreciate and love her better, and she'll actually believe that he does. It was a really weird instance, and I think it actually kind of made people really reconsider how they view characters like Magik for the time being, but I think over time she's kind of gotten past that, and I feel like they have actually grown past that, despite the fact that Colossus actually wanted to kill her. When he learned the truth, he instantly summoned the power of the Juggernaut and tried to destroy her, and it wasn't until he tried to that she made him realize the lesson she was trying to teach him, and yeah, it was just really weird. And so now you know why Colossus and Magik didn't have the sunny reunion I think a lot of people were expecting. And while that bad blood may still reside there, we at least know, thanks to some of these flashbacks, that Illyana doesn't really harbor any bad blood towards Colossus, and I think Colossus doesn't really either. I think they've moved on past this. You can even tell when Colossus interacts with the younger version of Illyana, it's almost as if nothing ever happened. It's almost as if the whole thing with Belasco and Limbo never even occurred. You can tell that he still loves her, and I think Illyana sees that. Even the older version of Illyana, seeing him interact with her younger self, sees that, and you definitely see it in the final moments of this where she lets the shade version of Colossus go that she's recreated in Belasco's libraries. The younger version of Illyana needed this moment as well, because this is actually what galvanizes her to become the Illyana that she is today. When we saw the younger version of Illyana in this, she had yet to become hardened by the land of Limbo. She was still a more innocent version of herself, even though she had been with Belasco for quite some time, but she hadn't quite fully thrown herself in to becoming the stronger version of herself that you see today. This whole beat of the story arc is, in a roundabout way, an end of Innocence. Now, there's definitely other stuff to look at too, but I'm not going to spend any time with it because I feel like we talked a good deal about why it should be past time for Madelyne Pryor to finally be given a free pass. You know, like we've given a free pass to Sinister, Apocalypse, Magneto, various and sundry other characters. Even Selene and M-Plate have gotten free passes. Shadow King has gotten a redemption arc. Why are we still holding Madelyne Pryor to a higher standard? But I do appreciate in this issue that we do see that the characters of Wolfsbane and Mirage are actually addressing what I think a lot of the fans were worried weren't going to be addressed, is that, yes, we recognize that Madelyne Pryor did terrible things, and she was used, manipulated, and turned into the monster that she eventually became. This wasn't of her own doing, but that said, that doesn't diminish the fact that she also did terrible things even when no one else was manipulating her. So it's one of those deals where we're kind of waiting to see if Madelyne Pryor is going to try to, actually change or try to be different or try to be better than the Madelyne Pryor she was before. Who knows? But I think Vita Ayala is, taking their time getting us to that story arc, which I'm perfectly fine with. I don't think this is something that they should just, boom, turn on a dime, I'm fine now. I don't think that works. I think we do need to take a little bit more time, a little bit more slowly, getting Maddie back to that point and allowing her to live her best life as she deserves. Because if Krakoa is for second chances, and we're giving second chances to people who have done far worse things than she has on multiple occasions, way more times than she has, I think it's a little unfair to just act as if Madelyne Pryor is to be held to a different standard just because she's a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister. Anyways, that's everything I wanted to talk about with New Mutants number 27. If you want to know more about what happened with Madelyne Pryor when she first returned at the beginning of the House of X era, check out this video right here to see her first interaction with her old boo thing, Havoc. And if you're interested in villain redemption arcs, check out this video down here to learn how the Shadow King got his shot at redemption. In the meantime, let me know what you thought about New Mutants number 27. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.